The town of Hollow Creek clung to the valley like a forgotten shadow, its weathered buildings huddled together as if seeking warmth from the perpetual mist that draped the surrounding hills. A sense of melancholic stillness permeated the air, a quiet broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant cawing of crows. It was a place where time seemed to slow, where the echoes of the past lingered like ghosts. For Anna, a young historian with a fascination for forgotten places and the stories they held, Hollow Creek was a siren's call. Her passion wasn't for grand monuments or celebrated battlefields, but for the quiet corners of history, the places where the whispers of ordinary lives still clung to the stones. A faded entry in a dusty old book, a brief mention of a forgotten cemetery, had led her to this secluded town. Following a winding dirt road that snaked through the overgrown landscape, Anna finally arrived at the cemetery gates. They were wrought iron, rusted and partially collapsed, hanging precariously from crumbling stone pillars. A thick veil of ivy draped itself over the metal, obscuring the view beyond. Pushing the gates open with a groan that echoed through the stillness, Anna stepped into a world lost to time. Tombstones, some leaning at precarious angles, others shattered and overgrown with moss, dotted the landscape. Twisted trees, their branches gnarled and reaching like skeletal fingers, cast long, eerie shadows across the uneven ground. A heavy silence hung in the air, broken only by the soft crunch of leaves beneath Anna's feet. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. As she ventured deeper into the cemetery, a chill prickled her skin, a feeling that had nothing to do with the cool autumn air. A subtle shift in the atmosphere, a sense of being watched, made the hair on the back of her neck stand on end. Then a whisper, so faint she almost dismissed it as her imagination, brushed her ear. It sounded like her name, carried on the wind, a hushed and mournful call from the forgotten souls. That rested there. Anna's heart pounded in her chest, but a thrill of curiosity overrode her initial apprehension. She moved further into the cemetery, her eyes scanning the weathered tombstones. Many were so worn that the inscriptions were illegible, eroded by time and the elements. Others, though still readable, bore only simple names and dates, offering fleeting glimpses into lives long past. She ran her fingers over the cold stone, trying to decipher the faint carvings, feeling a connection to the people who lay beneath. The cemetery was a tapestry of decay and resilience. Wildflowers pushed their way through cracks in the stone, adding splashes of color to the somber landscape. Vines climbed the crumbling monuments, reclaiming them for nature. The twisted branches of ancient oaks formed a canopy overhead, filtering the sunlight and casting dappled shadows that danced across the ground. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and a faint, almost metallic tang. As Anna rounded a particularly large mausoleum, she noticed a figure sitting on a low stone wall near the edge of the cemetery. He was an old man, his face etched with wrinkles and his eyes clouded with age. He wore worn overalls and a faded flannel shirt, and his hands rested on a gnarled wooden cane. Hesitantly, Anna approached him. "Excuse me," she said, her voice soft. "I'm exploring the cemetery. Do you know anything about it?" The old man looked up, his eyes focusing on her with surprising clarity. A slow smile spread across his face. "This here's the old Hollow Creek Cemetery," he said, his voice raspy. "Been here longer than anyone can remember. Folks say it's seen its share of things." He went on to tell her local legends, whispers passed down through generations, stories of tragic accidents, unsolved mysteries, and lives cut short. He spoke of those buried there who were forgotten by time, their names fading from memory, their stories lost to the wind. He mentioned whispers on the wind, shadows moving between the trees, and a general sense of unease that clung to the place. As the old man spoke, Anna noticed the shadows lengthening, the air growing colder. A rustling sound came from the trees. Behind them, like someone moving through the undergrowth. She glanced over her shoulder, but saw nothing. When she turned back to the old man, his eyes were fixed on something behind her, a look of fear etched on his face. "They don't like to be disturbed," he whispered, his voice trembling. "The ones who've been forgotten." Anna felt a chill run down her spine. She could hear the faint sound of whispering again, closer this time, as if the very air around them was alive with hushed voices. They seemed to be calling out names, indistinct and muffled, yet undeniably present. The feeling of being watched intensified, and Anna felt a growing sense of unease settle over her. The old man's words echoed in Anna's mind as she left the cemetery, a chilling reminder of the stories she had heard. Back in her rented room at the local inn, she spread out her research materials, photocopies of old maps, newspaper clippings, and handwritten notes from local historical societies. She was determined to uncover the truth behind the legends of the Hollow Creek Cemetery. Hours passed as Anna delved into the town's history. She discovered that the cemetery had been established in the early 1800s, serving the small farming community that had once thrived in the valley. But a devastating fire in 1888 had ravaged the town, claiming many lives and leaving a deep scar on the community. Many of the fire's victims were buried in the cemetery, their graves marked with simple, hastily carved stones. As she read through the accounts of the fire, a pattern began to emerge. Many of the victims were never properly identified, their names lost in the chaos and destruction. These were the forgotten ones, the ones the old man had spoken of. A shiver ran down her spine as she realized the connection between the legends and the historical records. The next day, Anna returned to the cemetery, this time armed with a notebook and a pencil. She meticulously documented the inscriptions on the tombstones, trying to piece together the stories of those buried there. As she worked, the whispers returned, faint at first, then growing gradually louder. She began to discern individual voices, hushed and mournful, calling out names. At first the names were indistinct, muffled by the wind and the rustling leaves. But as Anna focused, she began to recognize some of them. They matched the names of the fire victims she had found in her research. It was as if the spirits themselves were reaching out, trying to reclaim their lost identities. One name in particular kept recurring: Eliza. The voice that spoke it was soft and melancholic, filled with a deep sense of longing. Anna felt a strange connection to this unknown woman, a sense of shared sorrow and loss. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the cemetery, Anna experienced something truly unsettling. She was standing near a cluster of unmarked graves when she felt a sudden drop in temperature, a cold spot that seemed to emanate from the ground itself. A heavy silence fell, broken only by the frantic beating of her own heart. Then she saw it. A faint, translucent figure began to materialize before her, shimmering in the fading light. It was the figure of a woman, her features indistinct, but her form undeniably human. Anna gasped, her breath catching in her throat. Fear gripped her, but it was mingled with a strange sense of awe. She was witnessing something truly extraordinary, something that defied all logical explanation. The figure seemed to reach out to her, a silent plea in its spectral eyes. The whispers intensified, converging into a single mournful voice that echoed through the cemetery. "Eliza, remember me. Okay, here's chapter 4, The Confrontation, aiming for approximately 700 words. Chapter 4, The Confrontation. The spectral figure of Eliza shimmered before Anna, her translucent form wavering in the twilight. The whispered plea, "Eliza, remember me," resonated in the air, sending shivers down Anna's spine. Fear warred with a burgeoning sense of empathy. This wasn't a malevolent presence. It was a desperate cry for recognition, a yearning to be remembered. Driven by a mixture of trepidation and an inexplicable sense of duty, Anna decided to return to the cemetery that night. Armed with a digital voice recorder and her camera, she hoped to capture evidence of the paranormal activity and perhaps even communicate with the spirits. The moon hung high in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. The shadows were deeper, the silence more profound, broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl and the rustling of leaves in the night breeze. As Anna walked among the tombstones, the atmosphere felt charged, as if the very air was vibrating with unseen energy. The whispers returned, swirling around her like a chorus of mournful voices. She activated the voice recorder, hoping to capture their ethereal messages. She began to speak aloud, addressing the spirits directly. "I'm here to listen," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to know your stories. I want to remember you." As she spoke, the whispers intensified, becoming clearer and more distinct. The recorder picked up a cacophony of voices, each speaking in hushed tones, telling fragments of their lives, their hopes, and their fears. Anna felt overwhelmed by the sheer volume of emotions, the collective sorrow of the forgotten souls. Then one voice rose above the others, clear and distinct. It was the voice of Eliza, speaking in a soft, melancholic tone. "The fire. It took everything," she whispered. "My home, my family, my name, they forgot me." Anna felt a pang of sympathy for Eliza. She could sense the woman's pain, her deep sense of loss and abandonment. She asked Eliza about her life, about her family, about the events leading up to the fire. Slowly, painstakingly, Eliza began to share her story. She spoke of her childhood in Hollow Creek, of her loving parents and her close-knit community. She described the day of the fire, the chaos and confusion, the desperate attempts to escape the flames. She recounted how she had become separated from her family, how she had perished in the inferno, her body never properly identified. As Eliza spoke, Anna felt a cold spot forming around her, the air growing heavy and still. The spectral figure of Eliza began to materialize again, this time more clearly defined. Anna could see her face now, a young woman with sad, haunting eyes. Eliza reached out a translucent hand towards Anna, her touch sending a chill through her. "Remember me," she pleaded, her voice filled with desperation. "Tell them my name. Tell them I was here." Anna felt a surge of emotion, a powerful connection to this lost soul. She promised Eliza that she would not be forgotten, that she would do everything in her power to restore her memory. The spectral figure of Eliza began to fade, her form becoming less distinct, until she finally vanished into the night. The whispers subsided, leaving behind a profound silence. Anna knew she had a promise to keep. The encounter with Eliza had left a profound impact on Anna. The weight of her promise to remember her, to bring her story to light, settled heavily on her shoulders. Back in her room, Anna meticulously reviewed the recordings she had made in the cemetery. Eliza's voice, though faint, was clearly audible, recounting the tragic events of her life and the devastating fire. Anna spent the next few days immersed in research, delving deeper into the archives of Hollow Creek's history. She cross-referenced the names mentioned by Eliza with old census records, land deeds, and newspaper articles. Slowly, a picture of Eliza's life began to emerge. She discovered that Eliza's full name was Eliza Hawthorne, and she had been a beloved member of the community, known for her kindness and her beautiful singing voice. Anna also discovered that Eliza had indeed lost her entire family in the fire. Her parents and 2 younger siblings had perished alongside her, their remains never properly identified due to the extent of the damage. The tragedy had devastated the town, leaving a void that time had never fully healed. A breakthrough came when Anna stumbled upon a genealogical website. After hours of searching, she found a distant branch of the Hawthorne family living in a neighboring state. With a mixture of excitement and trepidation, Anna contacted them. At first, they were skeptical, unsure of Anna's motives. But when she shared the recordings and the historical documents she had gathered, they were stunned. They had heard whispers of a distant ancestor who had perished in a fire long ago, but the details had been lost to time. They had no idea of Eliza's full name or the circumstances of her death. Anna arranged a meeting with the Hawthorne family. They were deeply moved by Eliza's story, by the fact that someone had finally remembered her after all these years. They expressed their gratitude to Anna for bringing their ancestors' story to light. Together, Anna and the Hawthorne family organized a small memorial service at the Hollow Creek Cemetery. They commissioned a new plaque to be placed near the unmarked graves of the fire victims, listing their names, including Eliza Hawthorne. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, attended by members of the Hawthorne family, local residents, and Anna herself. As the names were read aloud, a gentle breeze swept through the cemetery, rustling the leaves of the ancient oaks. Anna felt a sense of peace settle over the place, a feeling that the forgotten souls had finally found their rest. The whispers, once filled with sorrow and longing, were now replaced by a quiet sense of acceptance. Eliza had been remembered. The memorial service marked a turning point for the Hollow Creek Cemetery. The air of oppressive sadness that had clung to the place for so long began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of quiet remembrance. The overgrown vegetation was cleared, the broken tombstones were repaired, and the cemetery was no longer a place of fear and neglect, but a peaceful resting place, a testament to the lives of those who had come before. For Anna, the experience had been transformative. She had started her journey as a historian, seeking forgotten stories, but she had become something more, a bridge between the past and the present, a voice for the voiceless. She continued her research, but with a renewed sense of purpose. She understood now that history wasn't just about dates and events. It was about the lives of real people, their joys, their sorrows, their hopes, and their fears, and it was crucial to remember them, to keep their stories alive. The Hollow Creek Cemetery became a local landmark, a place where people could come to reflect on the past and honor the memory of those who had been forgotten. The whispers were gone, replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves and the songs of birds. The fear that had once permeated the air was replaced by a sense of peace. Years later, Anna returned to Hollow Creek. The town had changed slightly, but the cemetery remained much as she remembered it, only now it was well maintained and cared for. She walked among the tombstones, pausing at the plaque that bore Eliza Hawthorne's name. A small bouquet of wildflowers had been placed there, a testament to the enduring power of memory. As she stood there, a gentle breeze swept through the cemetery, carrying with it the faint scent of wildflowers and damp earth. Anna closed her eyes, remembering the whispers, the spectral figure of Eliza, the weight of her promise. She had kept that promise. Eliza was no longer forgotten. Her story and the stories of the others buried there had been brought back to life, a reminder that even in the face of time and tragedy, the human spirit endures, and the power of remembrance can bring peace to even the most restless souls. The cemetery was no longer a place of terror, but a place of quiet reflection, a testament to the enduring power of memory and the importance of never forgetting the past.